For many, Halloween is a night filled with candy, ghosts, tricks, and a healthy dose of mystery. There is much debate on where Halloween comes from and why we celebrate it. In this speech, I will explain the most commonly believed origin of this spooky holiday. The origin of Halloween can be traced back all the way to an ancient pagan festival called Samhain, which was celebrated by the Celtics over 2,000 years ago. The Celtics believed that on this day the dead could rise and walk among the living, visiting their family, friends, and loved ones. The word Samhain by itself comes from the Old Irish word for summer's end. This holiday was used to mark the end of the summer harvest season and welcome the beginning of winter. During this time, it was believed that spirits, or fairies, also called East Sidhe, could more easily enter our world and walk among the living. The East Sidhe were seen as a sort of downgraded version of ancient gods after modern religious beliefs took their place. These supernatural beings were feared, and at Samhain it was believed that they needed to be appeased to ensure safe passage through the winter for people and their livestock. As a result, offerings of food and drink were left for the East Sidhe. These spirits of the dead were also appealed to, with families laying out settings at the dinner table for their loved ones. In addition to this, families would light candles and offer up prayers for the spirits of the dead. There were also bonfires that were built to be used in special divination rituals, many of which involved nuts and apples, whose flames and ashes were believed to have protective powers. In the early modern era of Scotland, the festival of Samhain included mumming and guising, the latter of which goes as far back as the 16th century. Individuals would dress up or disguise themselves and go door to door singing songs or reciting verses in exchange for bits of food. This activity may have been derived from the Christian tradition of souling, in which cakes called soul cakes were baked and shared with all whose souls were christened. This tradition has been suggested as being the origin of trick-or-treating. Dressing up or disguising oneself may have also been a method of hiding yourself from the East Sidhe. People would also smudge or blacken their faces with the ashes of the ritualistic bonfire. There is also much debate about the origins of what we know as the jack-o'-lantern. The name itself comes from the term ignis fatuus, which means foolish fire. It is known in English folklore as the will o' the wisp. The word wisp in this instance means a bundle of sticks or paper that is used as a torch. Will comes from the English name William, thus it ultimately means will of the torch. Jack-o'-lantern, in a similar fashion, means jack of the lantern. Vegetable carving itself has long been a common practice around the world, with gourds being the primary choice. The Maori were the first known people to carve lanterns out of gourds over 700 years ago. A commonly held belief is that carving jack-o'-lanterns at Halloween originated in Ireland, where turnips or beets were commonly used. These vegetables were carved with grotesque faces to represent goblins or spirits. The pumpkin was first used by North American immigrants as opposed to Irish turnips, both for its larger size and softer mass. This tradition was first documented in 1837, but it was not until the late 19th century that it became commonly associated with Halloween. Halloween imagery comes from various resources, its main idea conjuring up images of zombies and vampires. The images of vampires was inspired by Bram Stoker's Gothic horror novel Dracula. Other works of horror literature that have inspired imagery include Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. That's it. The skull is another commonly found image, and in the Christian tradition it is a reminder of death. In this speech, I have talked about many different aspects of Halloween and how it has come to be the holiday that we know today. Whichever origin you choose to believe, there are common qualities found that make up the holiday that we all know and love.